Let's go to NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki at the big board. Steve, how did Donald Trump do it, and where are some of the areas that he ought to be concerned with moving forward?
I mean, he did it by winning Republican voters. That's the short answer. He won Republican voters by 50 points over Nikki Haley. What went wrong for Haley in terms of not getting this within single digits or really getting in position to have a shot to win is two things. First of all, in the population centers of the state, we saw this in Iowa. That's where the voters that she tends to appeal to are disproportionately voters with higher incomes, places with higher concentrations of college degrees, more moderate voters, that sort of thing. Yeah, Nashua, New Hampshire, the second largest city in the state, right across the Massachusetts border, is a perfect example. This was supposed to be, in Haley's world, this was supposed to be Haley country. Has exactly the kind of voters I'm talking about, and yet she didn't even win Nashua. This is a place she needed to win by about 10 points. And the other problem that Nikki Haley had is, and we saw this in Iowa, when you get away from population centers and you get to areas that are small individually but big collectively and that really are becoming the backbone of the Republican Party, especially since Donald Trump came on the scene nearly a decade ago now. We're talking about small towns. We're talking about rural areas. We're talking about places with lower median incomes, places with lower college attainment. Nikki Haley did absolutely nothing in Iowa with places like that. There were a quarter of the counties in the state where she got single digits, and that trend absolutely continued in New Hampshire and showed no signs of changing. A good example, again, we'll go to the Massachusetts border, but a little town, New Ipswich here, Fitchburg, Mass, for a point of reference, a little bit south of here. Look at this 51-point win for Trump over Haley here. Again, this is like an Iowa-like performance for her in a county that is similar to what she struggled in Iowa. So it all adds up to Trump winning this thing by double digits. And I think if we just go to the exit poll here, I think it really puts it in stark relief. Again, this was an electorate. You are not going to find another state like this. District of Columbia is the only thing I can even think of where the electorate is going to resemble something like this. 50-50, essentially, Republican and non-Republican. And look at, among Republicans, 25% for Nikki Haley. You're not winning primaries if you're getting 25% of the Republican vote. You're not going to come close to the Republican nomination if you're getting 25% of the Republican vote. Where Haley was able to do better and keep this thing, to the low double digits, independent voters made up more than 40% of the electorate. She did win them by 22 points. That's a big margin. That's a good margin for her. But put this in some context. That is not by far the best margin we've seen among independents in the New Hampshire Republican primary. The biggest margin was 42 points. This is 22. The biggest margin was 42. That was John McCain in 2000. And John McCain then went to South Carolina, as this race will now go to South Carolina. And in South Carolina, George W. Bush was able to say, hey, John McCain is winning this thing, or is competitive on the backs of non-Republicans. And he was able to turn that Republican electorate in South Carolina heavily toward him, toward Bush. Trump certainly saw him last night. Among all of the things he said, he seemed to be setting up a very similar dynamic. And he's got a stronger argument to the core Republican base than Bush or really any other Republican I think have had, because this is a 73-point swing. This is more than a 70-point swing. From Trump winning by 49 among Republicans to Nikki Haley winning by 22 among independents. That's a 71-point swing. That is by far the biggest swing between winners of those two groups that we've ever seen in a New Hampshire Republican primary. And so simply, if you just look ahead at what's coming on this calendar, I can pull it up on the screen right here. You have Nevada. The rules are, Haley's in a primary with no delegates. Trump's in the caucus that has the delegates. So Trump's going to get all those delegates out of Nevada. There are 4 in the Virgin Islands. It's a wild card. There's a possibility Haley could do well there. It's 4 delegates. You go to South Carolina, just mentioned all the issues. It's her home state. But the issues based on those demographics that Haley's going to have in South Carolina are profound. And the key here is once we're out of this, these initial states, the rules change. And in many of these states, the rules have been changed at the behest of the Trump campaign, which has a strong influence over the state Republican parties. They've not been changed in South Carolina. They've always been this way. You win a congressional district by a single vote, you get every single delegate in the district. You win the statewide vote by 1 point, you win the entire state's delegate pool. So Trump got about a third of the vote in South Carolina in 2016. He swept all 50 delegates. He absolutely could do the same based on what we're seeing right now. You go to Michigan, it's split into 2 parts right here. You notice there's 2 different days. There's 16 delegates. There's 39 delegates. These are going to be given out proportionally. So Haley could get a chunk of these 16. But these 39 they're essentially winner take all, because if it's a two-person race right now, and in most of these states that are going to vote Super Tuesday, the rule is basically if you get 50% plus one, you get all the congressional district delegates. If you get 50% plus one, you get all the statewide delegates. And in a two-person race, that just means win. If Trump's getting 51 and Haley's getting 49, he will take all in a district, or he will take all statewide. And you just look, Michigan, go down to March 5th. It's a 50% rule in Alabama, in Arkansas. California statewide, 50% plus one, closed primary. You win. Trump's at 66% in the latest poll in California. You get all 169 there. Now North Carolina's proportional. Haley could have an opportunity there. Texas, 50%. You win the district, all the votes. 50%. You win the statewide, all the votes. This is, Haley could do well in Vermont, I could see, but this is just a recipe looming on the 5th of March for what the Republican process is designed to do, to get a nominee early.
Yeah. Wow.
All right, Steve Kornacki.
Yeah. Long story short, she's got no shot, right? Which is something that we all knew from the beginning. We've known this for a while. The only reason why, Nikki had any shot, right, in New Hampshire is because of stuff like this. Check out this clip and let me know your thoughts.
Christian, who did you vote for and why?
Yeah, so thank you. I voted for Nikki Haley, and it was certainly a strategic vote. I think the DNC is fairly resolute in their nomination for Joe Biden. And while I wouldn't vote for her in a general election, particularly on our differences with climate change solution, a women's right to bodily autonomy, or incarceration rates, I think a vote for Nikki Haley helps diminish Trump's influence in the RNC and their nomination, but is also a vote towards democracy.
And Christian is emblematic of so many conversations that I've had here throughout the day. Rachel?
Alex, Christian, thank you.
Yeah. Democrats openly voting for Nikki Haley. That's not the only instance that we got on camera of a Democrat admitting that they were voting for Nikki Haley. Check out this next clip.
Nikki Haley.
And why did you vote for Nikki Haley?
It's a vote against Trump. I think it would be better to have her against Biden in the elections than it would be Trump and her.
Do you consider yourself generally independent, Republican, or Democrat?
Democrat.
So when you undeclared, you voted for Nikki Haley. If it was Nikki Haley against Joe Biden in a general election, who are you voting for?
Joe Biden.
Yeah. And notice what they said there. Both of them said the exact same thing. If it were Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden, who would you vote for? They both said Joe Biden. Yeah. So while she was propped up, right, because of Democrats' independence, right? You got to put that in air quotations. Independence, voting for, it wouldn't matter in a general, right? But, let's go even further with it. Check out these numbers.
About how the rest of the night might play out. Let's go back to David Chalian with that. And David, you're getting more on the ways that Republican primary voters don't see eye to eye?
Yes, that's right, Jake. In these exit poll results, you see a Mars and Venus universe for Haley and Trump coalitions here. Take a look at the numbers. Among Trump voters, 70% of them, according to our exit polls, are registered Republicans. Donald Trump, his support, 27% of his voters are registered undeclareds or independents. 3% were unregistered before today. Look at how that compares with Nikki Haley. It's a complete reversal. It's an alternate universe. Among Haley voters, 70% are registered undeclareds. Only 27% are registered Republicans. We also see this with when asking people, did Joe Biden legitimately win the 2020 election? Which he did. Among Trump voters, 80% say no. They say it wrongly. No, Joe Biden did not legitimately win the 2020 election. Haley voters, it's the complete opposite. 83% of Haley voters say correctly that Joe Biden was the legitimate winner in 2020. Only 15% of her voters say wrongly that he was not. This is the Trump-Haley Mars-Venus election tonight in New Hampshire.
All right, David, thank you.
Yeah, what was that number again? Let me see. 70% undeclared. 70%. Only 27 registered Republicans voted for Nikki Haley. I think that says everything you need to know. But we can dig further.
We asked folks coming into the polls, do you identify as a Republican? Do you identify as a Democrat? Or do you identify as an independent? And here's what we found in this exit poll so far. And I think this jumps right out at you. A minority of voters in this first wave of the exit poll in the Republican primary identify as Republicans. A majority, 53%, identify as either independents, 45%, or, and this is a high number historically, 8% identify as Democrats. For some context here, in 2016, the last competitive Republican presidential primary in New Hampshire, the electorate was 55% Republican. It was 42% independent, and it was 3% Democratic. So in this initial wave, you're seeing some significant differences from 2016.
This was Nikki Haley's best shot at claiming a win. Well, maybe not the best shot. DC's probably best shot. But this was one of her great shots at claiming a win, right? And she still lost by double digits. Now, yeah, the margin wasn't as big as some of the polls had claimed that they might be. But, of course, we got thrown for a loop there with Democrats actually coming out to support Nikki Haley. If it was Republicans and independents, the way that it should have been, then those margins or those numbers would have been right in line, because he said that number for Democrats was historically high. I believe that number was 8%. Yes, 8. He said historically it's at 3. So you take away that 3%, or 3%. Goodness gracious. I'm doing some Joe Biden math right here. Take away the 5, right? And you give that to Trump. I believe Trump won by 12 points. I believe he won by 12. So you add that to Trump. Now you're right in line with where the polls were saying he was at. 17 points, high teens above Nikki Haley in New Hampshire. So there you go. Democrats tried to mess with it again and failed. You guys remember when I kept saying, hey, if we show up and show out for Trump, no matter what they do, they can't win? Just a small sample size right there, but there's an example. If we show up and we do what we're supposed to do in the numbers that we are supposed to do them in, I don't care what Democrats do, they can't win. You literally had Democrats show up and vote in a Republican primary. Yeah. Goodness gracious.
Want to shut off the border. Yeah, I changed my vote this morning. I went, instead of voting for Haley, I voted for Donald Trump this morning.
You changed your vote this morning?
Yeah,
why?
Sure did. You have a good day. I think the primary's over. I think that, Mr. Trump's going to be our next candidate.
I agree. If you didn't catch that one, all is not lost. The guy originally, I guess, voted for Nikki Haley, and he came back in and changed his vote to Uncle Trump. Because he's like, yeah, this thing is over. Like, what am I even doing here? You know what I'm saying? It is over. It's completely over. And even the RNC chair, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but when she's coming out and saying it, you've got some major problems on your hands.
Looking at the math and the path going forward, and I don't see it for Nikki Haley. I think she's run a great campaign, but I do think there is a message that's coming out from the voters, which is very clear, We need to unite around our eventual nominee, which is going to be Donald Trump, and we need to make sure we beat Joe Biden. It is 10 months away till the November election, and we can't wait any longer to put our foot on the gas, to beat the worst president, to beat a president that's kept our borders open, allowed fentanyl to pour through, allowed inflation to go rampant. He is hurting the American people, and we need to do everything we can to unite so that we can defeat him.
Yeah. I actually agree with her. I actually agree. I'm sure most of you do as well. I still want to get rid of her. I'd prefer that she is replaced with Scott Presler. Personally, I think he would do a great job, fantastic job. I've retweeted like everything he's posted because I mean the guy's phenomenal. So I definitely want to show love and support for what he's trying to do, getting people registered, to vote, making sure people are ready to go when it's time to show up. I mean, traveling around the country doing it. I mean, the guy's incredible. If you don't follow him, highly encourage you all to do so. But I want to just play a little bit of Trump's victory speech because he said something interesting.
Up and I said, wow, she's doing like a speech like she won. She didn't win, she lost. And last
that is true. She did give a speech like she actually won, and she didn't.
Last week we had a little bit of a problem, and if you remember, Ron was very upset because she ran up and she pretended she won Iowa. And I looked around, I said, didn't she come in third? Yeah, she came in third. And then I looked at the polls. She was talking about most winnability, who's going to win, and I had one put up. I don't know if you see it, but I have one put up. We've won almost every single poll in the last 3 months against crooked Joe Biden. Almost every poll. And she doesn't win those.
Facts. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think I had one of those polls pulled up. Crap. Where was that darn thing? Here it is. Let me expand that. Put that on the screen. Or actually, this was posted today, January 24th, which is today. I had to double check, make sure. I was like, hold on, was it posted today? Okay, so national poll, Trump +7. When you add in RFK Jr. and, others, Trump +9. Yeah. GOP, Trump +63. So it's not even close. And I agree with what Marjorie Taylor Greene, I believe it was Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had said. Nikki Haley's literally just burning money. Absolutely burning and wasting money. And she actually got called out for it. And I showed you guys the clip yesterday by a gentleman because he said, hey, yo, this money could be going towards some great causes. There's homeless veterans. And you're just out here burning through money for no reason. You're not going to win. Trump is going to win. And her response was, of course, well, we live in a democracy. We don't live in a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. Get it right. I'm sorry. My bad, Nikki. I know you're a Democrat and that's y'all talking point, which that's another way she just exposed herself. Anyway, y'all let me know your thoughts, your opinions on this in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Trump 11, 12-point win? Are you disappointed? Are you satisfied? You happy with it? I'm happy with it personally because as I understand, Democrats tried to show up and, boost up Nikki Haley. You saw the clips there, that I showed you guys. They literally wanted to get Nikki Haley the nomination just to not vote for her. Like, what? So as far as the margin goes, initially I was a little bit like, that's not good. Like yesterday when I was checking on the numbers, initially I was looking like, ooh, that's not looking too good. I'm just not gonna look at these numbers for a little while until I'm gonna come back. But then after I did some more digging and whatnot, and obviously as more and more numbers came out, that margin, grew, because it was single digits at one point, but then the margin grew to where it is now, 11-12%. And, I found out through polls and through the actual videos that there was Democrats actually, like, legitimately showing up in, double or quadruple the normal numbers. So not too worried about it. Not worried about it at all. I think Trump did what he was supposed to do, and did it well. And the election played out the way it was supposed to play out. Trump with the double-digit lead. Granted, low double digits, but like I said, Democrats showed up and brought that number down a bit. I think if you took the Democrats out, that boosts Trump up to nearly 20%. And that stands more in line with where the polls were projecting Trump would be, high teens. So, yeah, not worried at all. I think everything is progressing the way it's supposed to progress. And the only thing that could stop us is us not showing up. And I don't think that's going to happen. So, peace and love. I'm out.